It was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. It was awesome because what I needed was a distancing from the emotions of a client, creating boundaries. I never had boundaries. Veronica was a person that said, like, no, when you're off, you're off. None of that you can give your other business line that goes to your phone, like, no, you're off.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode. All right, everyone. Today we have an amazing podcast guest with us. We have Dr. Priya Bhatt with us today. She is an integrative veterinarian who received her Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree in 2009 from the University of Illinois College of Veterinary Medicine. She became certified in acupuncture through the Chi Institute of Traditional Chinese Veterinary Medicine, my favorite. She is also certified in level 2 Reiki and chiropractic manipulation. In addition, Dr. Bhatt sits on the board of directors for the Chicago Veterinary Medical Association. She practiced as a referral-based specialty house call practitioner for acupuncture and integrative medicine for 7 years and still serves those house call clients at home, even though she is primarily offering in-clinic care for animals at this point through her practice, Arya Animal Acupuncture, which is currently a clinic reincarnation of her previous practice. So welcome, Priya. I'm so excited to have you here. For those of you guys that don't know, which includes pretty much every one of you, how would you know, right? Priya reached out to me several months ago, said, "Hey, I'm going to be in LA. Do you want to meet up?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's get together." We didn't know each other before. We'd just been Facebook friends, and we met up and we got ice cream at Wanderlust and just talked about life and everything and just had a wonderfully phenomenal connection experience. And now we're friends, and I'm just super honored to have her here on the podcast today.
I'm super honored to be on your podcast. This is great. And what a great introduction. I will make a couple of adjustments to
Sure.
honor those that need to, but I'm no longer on the CVMA board. I was on the board of directors for Illinois State Veterinary Association. So I've done it for both associations and now I'm taking a break. But that's my current updated status.
Well, that's really cool that you were on the board. And I think that's a really cool thing. I know a handful of vets who have been on their state boards, and it sounds like it's really educational and really important work to do.
Oh, I think that every single practicing veterinarian or non-practicing veterinarian, lab veterinarian, research veterinarian, everybody should be in some way involved in the state boards because they're the ones working at legislation at the levels that we never even see to be making sure the veterinarians keep their DVM degree and what is allowed in our practice act versus human chiropractors, human acupuncturists, regular MDs or pet stores taking advice out of our hands. And so the more involved every single veterinarian is in at least being educated and reading on what the state board is doing is being part of the conversation.
Oh, I love that empowerment message because there's, like you said, there's like so much that is out of our control and out of our realm and like knowing about how we're being regulated, therefore, how our patients will be able to receive care, right?
Yeah.
So,
And being part of a state board, like volunteering, is not always as much hard work because, at the very least, everyone else is veterinarian. So they all understand that practice takes a lot of our time, but it's about how we're listening and then how we're being part of that conversation. So stepping down from the board of directors and not moving forward or applying to move forward for a different position is not necessarily me not taking part of ISVMA because I've decided to stay on as part of one of their committees. And actually, I really want to be involved in their legislative committee, which is what I'm part of, so that I can hear and give in my 2 cents for everything that I'm hearing and experiencing with them.
yeah, that's amazing. And I'm just really glad to have your voice involved in that capacity because I know that you're very passionate. We're both very
We're
passionate.
both very passionate.
Very passionate. We had like the decibels of our conversation was like rising and rising. Like we were so excited to talk to each other and that
Yeah.
I just and so man, I'm just excited you're here and just like we're already like diving right into the heart of it.
Yeah.
Um, and so just kind of like backing up a little bit, I wanted to start out the episode how I always start out for our house call vets or previous house call vets with the question of what is your favorite snack to eat when you're in the car on the way to your patients? And I know you see
Yeah.
patients on a house call basis.
Yes. Yes. And yes to both questions. So, my favorite on the road snack would always be Taco Bell because it's easy. Like you grab a burrito and down the hatch it goes. And especially if I wanted to stay less away from like fried food or, I'm not a big burger person, but still like chicken sandwiches. I think the best thing was probably one of my doctors saying, like, you can do better, Priya. Come on, pack your lunch and eat healthier. So since then, I haven't been as gung ho Taco Bell, but definitely Taco Bell. And then, am I still on the road? And the answer is yes. So once a week, right now, that day is Thursday. So every Thursday is committed to my over 7 years grandfathered in clients. I'm now at 8 years. So actually, the practice on the road was purely on the road for about 6 years. And on the seventh year, we opened up here and now we're running our eighth year. And so there is a lot of liberty being on the road. There's a lot of chaos, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
liberty as well. And so I actually feel like I have the best of both worlds because when I started off as a house call practitioner, how it happened is I was working with a mixed traditional group practice. I received my acupuncture degree and Chinese medicine degree in 2013. And I was very proactive in doing my traditional medicine along with acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And I learned how to start blending together, thereby making integrative medicine. And since I started doing that already with the traditional set practice, where I'd been with that practice already for a couple of years and practicing strong, good medicine and surgery, it was only just the next learning step up for me. I was encouraged by other veterinary colleagues who had gone through the program with Chi Institute and saw that I would be a good fit personality wise with what the Chi Institute brings, which is not only, learning a technique and a diagnostic skill and a treatment strategy, but also taking away teachings to apply for our lives. And so I brought that back, but unfortunately, many acupuncturists or holistic, veterinarians are, naturally treated with a little bit of resistance. And so I did receive that resistance at my practice, even though I was like showing them the patterns of how I'd see patients and that they do generate quite a bit of income.
And the results in the patients.
Yes, and the results. They weren't quite inclined, but I believe now, looking back retrospectively, they were ready to retire. And so, sure enough, that's actually what happened. It was the top of 2015. They sold the clinic and it was time to move on. So I left this standing practice. And with that, many clients had followed because many had also become very involved in the acupuncture that I was giving to them. And they had a trust with me. So basically, I left, and it was within a few days that the Chicago Association was contacted, and people were figuring out how to reach out to Dr. Bhatt. And then when they did reach out, like, we don't care, come to our home. So I was out of the practice I was with, and within weeks started on the road. And by May of 2015, made it a legitimate name and a practice on the road. And then it became a learning curve. But what was really awesome is that because I was limited with just being myself on the road, that I had nobody else, I didn't have staff. I literally did everything on my own and learned everything on my own, which almost like rarely happens nowadays because I feel like the new generation is really spoon fed everything. And so they're
Like how I spoon feed my household vet academy people.
literally.
I spoon feed the shit out of every aspect of
See, so
house.
I'd like to see some challenge because, some of us best vets out there have been the ones that have had to like be challenged, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was able to focus on Chinese medicine and acupuncture because I was getting referred to, by a neurologist or by a GP who believed in acupuncture. And then it started, 2015 went by, it was getting slow. 2016 was slow and steady. And that's it. Then it started revving up. And then 2017, I got my chiropractic manipulation license certification, which allowed me to really put more hands on and using the Chinese medicine with the neurological medicine attained from chiropractic or manipulation programs, a particular program. I took what I can do in the home to yet another level. And so truly, I was very low overhead
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
yeah, for like 5 years. And then
That's the beauty right there.
and the beauty. And
For your
so,
hands, your mind, a couple needles, your education.
yes, and it was great. It was great. And I would still stay affiliated with actual brick and mortar traditional practices or, a holistic practice because I wanted to continue learning. And I also wanted to continue serving my clients who were following me over the years. And so dentals or x-rays or something needed to be done. And so what really got me to open the there are a couple of things because having the flexibility of
Now, if you're on listeners, Priya knows exactly what questions I was going to ask, and she's just going for it. And I'm loving
sorry,
it. You're perfect. I love, like, you're taking us through the journey. And, like,
I am very
I'm
journey
loving
based.
it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, so I am very journey based, and it's only after you've kind of like come down the hill of a particular journey that you can kind of look back and be like, "Oh my gosh, I understand how angry and why I was tired and why this journey was so difficult to go up that hill." But then all the fruits that were at the bottom of the hill, right?
I want to know also, like, what were your learnings and what were those difficulties? And when you were like hating life, like, what was it that you were working through, and how did you get over that hill to enjoy the fruits on the
So
bottom of the hill?
which part of that journeys are you talking about? So journeys like in my last traditional practice where they sold the practice and then I left, or while I was primarily house call by myself?
Let's hear a little of both.
Okay. So I started off veterinary medicine with an integrative veterinarian who promised me mentorship and didn't do it and created a culture of negativity, which I, of course, didn't understand at that time, but just knew that when 1 year was up, I just did what I did best, which is I socialize. And I remember exactly where I was. I was at an IDEX meeting about what I don't know, something or the other, but it was a dinner meeting. I ended up striking conversation with whoever was sitting at my table. One of the ladies and I ended up having a really great conversation, so much so that the meeting ended and we took our conversation outside of the building and kept talking. And by the time we were nearing the end of the conversation, it became something like she said to me, "You should come and visit our practice and maybe even replace our associate that we want to get rid of." And I was like, "Oh," part of the business conversation of like, "Why are you trying to get rid of your associate?" And so turns out associate for 6 years had never made production and something I made within 1 year. And that was really what I identified was a reason is because she was so introverted. She was not taking the time to educate clients. And so if you don't take the time to educate clients, like they're not going to believe the stuff that's important. And one of them I remember really distinctly is that I had sold heartworm prevention to a couple client who had told me in that room in that appointment that they never understood it, which is why they never took it. And of course, their previous vet was this vet that I replaced. So they were actually very good people. Like they kept her on for a long time because they cared about who she was as a person. And so I was acknowledging that because at that time, the integrative boss, there's so many other tangents I could go through this, but staying on tangent, the integrative boss was actually on the opposite front. So, although throughout the year she had seen me grow as a doctor and get the love of many clients and, fight for veterinary medicine, she turned around and attempted to keep me in the clinic by reducing my pay.
What?
Yeah. Reducing my pay by $10,000 and putting the ownership on me to come up with abilities to advertise a clinic, something that she had not done at all. And so, what she didn't think that I was doing is I was simultaneously having a conversation with this said doctor who said, "Hey, come check out our clinic." Which I did. And I really, at that point, wanted a multi-doctor clinic. I needed support to learn, which is something she could not offer me. And so I was so happy within a year of being in this multi-doctor clinic. I was learning, I was nice, but that's to now describe why it was not nice is because when there are feelings of like what we now know as a term called gaslighting, but
Oh,
almost like you're getting gaslit by feelings because you are observing things that are happening and you're like, "Am I crazy?" And
yeah.
so for me, it was like, how could you not go all in for this huge acupuncture promotion plan proposing? Like, why? Why wouldn't you want the business to grow? Like, I was like, what? I don't understand. I don't understand. Well, I surely understood once the papers were signed and they sold a practice, which they sort of did illegally because legally they were supposed to tell me because I was no longer their employee. I now was like, no one's employee because I had to sign on with another person to be contracted to them. So could that have led to a legal battle? Yes, but in the long run, I didn't want to deal with that shit. There were a lot of hurt feelings in that clinic because I think, like with many vets, we put a lot of ourselves in it. And so there were days that I worked till 10 or 12 because I wanted to get it right for the client and the patient. That's where that not so good patch was. And I thought things were dismal when I walked out of the practice until, like I said, 3 days later, my email was blown up. And so I came out of that pretty quickly. And
Your email was blown up by
my clients,
yeah.
client, like, where are you?
Yes.
How can we see you? And I gotta say, my oldest client is from that very first clinic I started with because there were a couple of them that exited. And that was like back 2009, 2010, right?
So your email blew up
Yes.
and then house call practice.
Yes. There was, again, no mentorship. There was no one I felt like I could reach out to and really look into this. And so it
I
just started. You too?
and I now do what I do.
Yes, and you're amazing at it, and you're amazing at everything. But, I guess, like, it just started off there was no advertisement or anything because when it first started off, the first 6 months were just really serving my own clients that followed me out. And I'm an empathic person, I'm an emotional person, I love what I do, and I really try to help clients understand the nature of their relationship with their pet and how traditional medicine and Chinese medicine and acupuncture, anything under the sun really plays a role for whatever their family wants. But what doesn't work is if you're incapable of communicating, incapable of respecting, and incapable of taking accountability. And so I've had great, like, at home clients that I've had big blown out, or it started to be a blowout and then it just went over email. And I was just like, you know what? We're done. Like, I told a client who had the audacity to leave her dog that she thought was dying and called me for an emergency visit to the house. So of course, like, because she didn't want to take him inside to an ER, which we recommended, I had to cancel other things I was doing, go directly to her. And Like, even my manager now, the reason that we're have a brick and mortar is, she had said, like, what these people are getting is not even it's so they're paying so little for what you're giving. And that's because, like, I wanted to make, acupuncture attainable. And around the time that I started my business, 2015, there weren't a ton of acupuncturists around. Now in Chicagoland, there's actually quite a bit of acupuncturists around. So anybody who can't find one is really just not looking properly. But a lot of traditional practices have now started having someone who is a general vet that also has learned acupuncture. So now it's different because there's a different philosophy in the doctor who takes the time to learn Chinese medicine and implement and learn how to do acupuncture and chiropractic alongside traditional medicine versus having to be mandated to do traditional medicine and Chinese medicine. So it is very challenging for a lot of the people. I know there's a great doctor I know that I want to hire her here, but like I keep telling her, he comes and shadows me. I'm like, you can come and work for me, but she just wants to learn from me. And she also went to the Chi Institute. She's an exceptional doctor, but she can't get out of her traditional head. And I keep telling her, like, where you want to be as a Chinese medicine practitioner, an acupuncturist may not come to the level of me because you have to give yourself that time where you're doing just Chinese medicine. So that even vet students, I know I'm going off on a tangent from what it was, but vet students, I go down to University of Illinois. Periodically, I like to talk to the students, lecture to the students and whatever, and be involved and whatnot. And so I was down for the student AVMA last fall, and I think I did a DEI lecture and I did an integration lecture. And the acupuncture lecture was pretty 50% full. And one student came up to me afterwards and she's like, well, do you think that I should go to acupuncture school now? And I'm like, no. She's like, well, I just want to be on top of everything. That's what she wants. I was like, no, like you have questions. You can reach out to practitioners like myself. You can choose to shadow at my clinics and learn by being a shadow, and externing. I was like, but in order to get a good base of your medicine and emergency and diagnostics and surgery, like you need to give yourself the time, which is at minimum 3 years to and really delved into that. So I discourage everybody who wants to simultaneously learn Chinese medicine. It's a completely different language and diagnostic skill.
It's a very interesting perspective there because, like, you're mastering one language is the Western traditional medicine. And, like, take a minute to learn and master that before you step into an entire, it's like you
Yes.
just got you can potentially learn them at the same time. But what you're saying is like very valid and really interesting. Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break to remind everyone that we have the House Call and Mobile Vet virtual conference coming up. Ticket sales are open again for our third annual conference, February 3rd and 4th, 2024. This is a conference where we actually can be together face to face to celebrate each other and learn together in community. This is a conference that is for us and by us. This is where we get to meet our colleagues from all over the world, connect with our people in real time, learn actionable tips, tricks, and inspiration that is specific to our special micro niche of practice. If you're unsure if this is for you, here's what a few attendees have said in the past. Dr. M said, "It was 1,000 times more intimate than any conference, virtual or in person, that I've ever attended." Dr. A said, "It was a perfect mix of practical information regarding the logistics of seeing house call appointments and the mental side of house call business ownership." Dr. D said, "There were times that I just teared up with emotion to feel a part of a wonderful group and to know that I was not alone in this adventure." You're truly not alone. We're all here with you, no matter what type of mobile or house call practice you have, or even if you're brand new to this community. This conference is for you if you're super experienced or if you're still thinking about whether you want to be a house call or mobile vet to begin with. This conference is for you whether you're doing end-of-life care in the home, whether you're doing acupuncture-only house calls, whether you're an integrative vet, or whether you're a full-service Laboit practice. This conference is for you if you're anything in between. If you can't make it in person, no worries. Recordings are available afterwards for a limited time, so please reach out if you have any questions, and I can't wait to see you there.
Kind of like the veterinarian that wants to have it all. Like, I want to do boarding and grooming, and I want to do ER services, and I want to do, rehab, and I want to do this. And it's like, is it possible? Yeah. Will it be good? No, because it's too fractured. You got to stick to a few things you're really good at. And if it's so good that it gets boring. So for me, that transition, as you asked about, from being in a group in traditional medicine, when I left in 2015, it started fracturing anyways. So what I loved about, like, our group had started to fracture in 2014, which was the gaslighting I'm referencing, is that, like, just feeling things are off, like stuff wasn't adding up. And for that, ultimately, like, my ex-bosses, who now we're in, good relationship, friendly relationship, like, I did ultimately tell them that way after, like a year after I wrote them a huge letter and identified all the ways that they could have done it differently and that it hurt me. And that, things could have also gone to a legal ramification if I wanted it to, which I didn't really want to do that route. Because at the end of the day, what I was advised from a friend who is a lawyer was that pursue what you want to do and show them that you can rise. And I did. Like I said, within a few days, people were calling. So by May, I felt like, holy crap, I better create an LLC
Yeah.
because I'm just suddenly getting too much income here that someone is going to call me on it. So developed the LLC, kind of, started working on my website, kind of thinking about what I want to do. Wanted it to be primarily referral based, but like couldn't necessarily feel like veterinarians are people I could rely on. I mean, even now, the neurologist who started referring to me in 2015 doesn't even give a list of acupuncturists out to anybody, like even if they're requesting it. So she is primarily surgery. And that's what I see a lot, to be honest, with surgeons, internists. Like every now and then I'll come across a specialist who's like so gung ho about incorporating Chinese medicine and, integrative medicine. And then I talk about how it can be done. And if anything, I would say every now and then I come across that GP that's like, I have no qualms of sending you these clients, and like, go forth and be well and prosper. Right. And I'm like, that's what Dr. Chen says, is that there are enough people for all of us. And really, if we all do play well together, we might learn things from one another, because I don't need to send my patients to internal medicine or oncology or anything. And I get extremely good results, but they wouldn't know that unless they were willing to like work with me. But anyways, that was more tangents.
It's actually a good tangent. I addressed this a little bit about that kind of like friction between general practice specialists and then integrative practitioners. It's a really valid
And
thing.
even a house call. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
place, like, I would never hesitate that if, like, you lived here, I would never hesitate to refer to you. I'd be like, you know what? Like, I think Dr. and I get along great. Like, she has her house call business. You want somebody to come to the home? Great. She'll do her thing, send it to me. Anything additional that needs to be done that's beyond the capacity of being done at home, like, do it here. But that's the thing. And what I understand is that many people now in roughly our age group generation that basically have been out for a long time are either becoming independent as relief doctors, independent as practice owners, or independent as house call practitioners, which is what we need to get off, like, making sure that veterinary medicine continues to always stay owned by the people is most important, because I mean that's been screwed up for human medicine. Like ever since corporations took over, it really limits how doctors can practice, and that malpractice rate has just skyrocketed. That I've lost many family friends to different states because they couldn't afford to pay Illinois malpractice. And I believe California malpractice is extremely high as well for human doctors, not for veterinary. But I mean, yeah, there's all these components that go into play. And I guess when, as you know, as a house call practitioner, when clients like you, they'll talk about you, right? And so how it started to spread was actually client to client. And so because there were new names coming through, I started having to do a referred by. And so especially if it's referred neurologist or internal medicine, I definitely want to get the notes beforehand, but also to create safety because I was still by myself, right? So I learned how to figure it out. But then your question was, what are the negative impact of being a house call vet? I think that if I was able to focus on just doing my job, getting the payout for it, I would be okay. But because I'm very intimately involved, which I imagine many house call vets are, with the clients and with the pets, it started to wear on me because I felt as though there were some people that maybe didn't mean to, but were very like, I was called when I was needed, but not honored for consistency or communication or, almost like it's an expectation that you're coming to my home or like, okay, Dr. Bhatt, you're always running late. Yes, that's, shit happens in my life. So
Yeah.
I'm always running late. At least I'm open to people about that. Yeah, I had a client that was on one part of town way separate from where most of my appointments were. And I was always late because she needed an evening appointment. So I had to go through traffic. And everybody who had me knew that I will talk out any concerns, even if I have limited time, because that's a service you get from me in the home. And so I felt like I was doing so much and not getting back enough from clients in return that I started feeling a burnout. And so my burnout, as you had asked me, what's the difference? The burnout I was feeling when I was in private practice with a bunch of people that I liked was feeling alienated at times by lack of communication and transparency. And so I really felt burnout by where I worked, by the bosses, by the staff, by everybody in that environment. Whereas the burnout I was feeling as a house call that was due to clients. And so around 2018, Veronica, my now practice manager, CVT also was CVT then, a canine massage therapist who was on the road. She and I were working together and I would refer to her for massages for my patients. And she just was amazing. She is amazing to be a young girl to like develop her own business, her own website, like do all these things. She called me up one day and she's like, all right, I have successfully opened up a couple of practices for people. They have underutilized me or made me feel incompetent, not worthy. And so I've left. How do you feel about taking your business to the next level? And I'm like, okay, well, let me make one thing clear. All I want to do is doctor. I was like, I don't mind interacting with the clients. That's my nature. I was like, I just don't want to have to manage employees. I don't want to manage to make sure I'm paying rent at the right time. I don't want to manage the bills. Like they will become astronomical. I was like, if you do all the management, like truly my non silent partner, then I'm in.
Transitioning from house call into the clinic. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. It was awesome because what I needed was a distancing from the emotions of a client, creating boundaries. I never had boundaries. Veronica was a person that said, like, no, when you're off, you're off. None of that you can give your other business line that goes to your phone, like, no, you're off. So it's taken me until like when you saw me in August, I hadn't taken any days off. Now I'm actually trying to take a Friday off. Here I am. I came in for a couple appointments anyways, but I tried to take a Friday off. But I also love being on the road. And I also honor my 7 years of grandfathered in clients. I feel like the fact that they've been loyal to me and followed me and have in their own way shown they care about me, whether it's cooking dinner or bringing treats or whatever, that I feel that there's a simultaneous loyalty that I feel for them, that it is my pleasure to come to their home and maintain that intimate relationship that we have because the house call clients are by far, we have established at our practice our favorite clients because
Yeah.
they love us, and they trust us. And so, what can be better than that?
It's beautiful. I relate to that very much. Like I have dinner at my clients' houses. They give me gifts.
Yes.
Like they give me like really tailored gifts. Like I'm getting presents wrapped in like mushroom wrapping paper. Like we know each other and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I also just love that you mentioned that the sort of transition from having a real challenge with boundaries and people expecting things from you and not understanding like an ETA window for a traveling service,
Yeah.
right? And that now, like, I don't know that necessarily like the brick and mortar aspect of it is what has helped with the boundaries. Maybe it has in your life.
Yes.
At the same time, you have a partner now who's helping enforce boundaries for you and who's
Yes.
literally saying you are off and who is holding that space for the boundary keeper. You don't have to
Yeah.
do it. And I think that's a really, really invaluable thing that I
Yeah.
think there's ways when you are your own solo practitioner to have policies and boundaries, but it's way, way harder than if you have someone who's advocating for you or someone who's in charge of doing like the good cop, bad cop. Like they
Yes.
a boundary holder. They can be like, no,
Yes.
these are our hours. Dr. Bott is not available. It's
Yeah.
much for something to say it on your behalf than for you to be like, sorry, I know you're suffering, but I choose not to come see you.
So, there have been whole other challenges that have come up, and so, in even spending Thursday to go and be a house call vet is also very challenging because there are plenty of clients that could be booked for that Thursday in clinic, right? But that's a decision that I've decided to make. And my head nurse, Ashley, who goes on the road with me, actually loves that day because it's because of our clients. It's a very laid back, like I wear my sweatshirt and sweatpants. And I'm like, how you doing? And then they're like, hey, Dr. Bach, can we get you a water? Can we get you a tea? What about you, Ashley? Can we get you a water? Can we get you a tea? So it's always a fun experience.
That's the heart of it right there.
Yes. That's the heart of it. That's the heart of it. So I'm happy living my dual life right now of in clinic and a little bit on the road.
Okay. All right. It's very cool that you have that balance. Would you say that like some of the issues with boundaries have been improved in your house call practice now that you have this collaboration and that you've
Yeah.
kind of like and
I
your
don't
brick and
grow my
mortar.
house call practice anymore. Someone can get on the roster to be a house call if their animal is down, if they're paralyzed people or surgery people, if there's a good, valid reason. But again, don't ask for a general checkup. If you're looking for, you want to get this animal up, you want integrative care, that's one thing. Otherwise, I'll be like, there are plenty of other house call doctors, like call one of them, right? So there's no issues with my house call because they're now all the clients that I really want. Even this year or last year, we acquired one or two maybe new house call, and I ended up firing them as house call clients because one of them she was batshit crazy. And so she didn't, yeah. So I was like, this is not worth my time. And the dog was mobile. When she said the dog was down, it was not. Mastiff was up and capable of walking. So I will say that the struggle became real when I opened doors here. I made the mistake of thinking that I can offer my services at a much lower price and get more people. And one, the staff found that like you need a certain amount of time booked out, period, period, period. So whether you want to charge $50, $100, $300, that's your call. So we went with the regular fee of little over $100, which I thought was cool and fair. But what ended up doing is that like there were referrals going out, but of the people that were coming in, they weren't of value to our practice. It's not, I don't care what financial background you come in, but you come with the nasty attitude, with an expectation attitude and no accountability. Like, one, I'm going to fire you, but two, now you wouldn't even get in. Like no rando can like that. Yeah. There was a lot of things that I learned. I give credit to our colleague and, my longtime integrative friend, Dr. Lily Chen, for just sort of giving me perspective on how an integrative vet with my capabilities and what I offer to clients should be charging. But then, definitely because the veterinary community is very poor and I feel like warning and supporting, I ended up having to pay a lot of money. And I paid one of my clients who's a lawyer to really get involved with an issue that was going on and really help navigate, which again, this would be super uber valuable if it was taught to all veterinarians in veterinary school, even if it was
I
like,
agree.
hello. Like, the
That's
fact that there is 0 business training, 0 legal training, like, even to legally know our rights or legally know what is not allowed in our practice act, and that's another reason to be involved in our state boards. Like, a couple weeks ago, placed an online complaint against the Illinois board for a physical therapist who, for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years has been doing dry needling and inappropriate rehab techniques with dogs without getting a veterinary sign off. And it came to my attention again after many years because a rehab veterinary friend of mine asked me about this person and said he made a Frenchie with a cervical lesion pull weights. And I was like, oh, That is so not good. And so that lady clearly recognized something and shifted her care to an actual veterinary rehabilitation practitioner. But yeah, so I mean, the reality is that if vets don't have a voice and get involved, like we're the one profession, we're screwed because, we're not considered guardians. Basically, any discipline can take over our service. Any. They legally shouldn't, but they're more and more getting away with it. And I've seen that even, I think you and I talked about it when I was in LA. I've seen it on posts by veterinarians in different states, how like, some guy was arrested for doing a backyard cesarean. It's like, I don't get the drugs. Like, how do you get the stuff? Like, things apparently are available on Amazon, which is like Bezos. We need to have a conversation about this. So, veterinary medicine is truly like you can choose to protect it for your own self and for what you stand for, or you could just not give a shit. And quite honestly, I feel like if you don't give a shit and you're a veterinarian, get the fuck out of the industry. Excuse me. Most-
Totally allowed. You don't worry.
I just-
But
well, that's how I feel, like,
very, very much in agreement. I mean, to what you said, like get no business education, no legal information. That's exactly why I do what I do. I have attorneys speaking within the program,
amazing.
help them know about business, CPAs in there because, like, how are we expected to own and have, like you said earlier, keep the practices with the people if we're not given those tools? And so I agree with you 100% that we need to be given those tools. And,
You also have to remind vet teams, veterinarians, and staff that there's a good law for protection of whistleblowers. And so, even within the industry, you see something that shouldn't be happening, you should be saying something. And if still things don't change, like people rely on us to hold other people that have our degrees accountable.
oh my God, you're right. Like, thank you also for bringing that up because in my surgical residency, I did some whistleblowing.
Okay, I didn't know you did surgical residency. Girl, get a dual license in Illinois. And come out and work here with me for a little bit.
I would love to. I would love to. I mean, we would have so much fun. It would be insane.
Yeah.
It would be insane. But like in my surgical residency, I reported racial problems, sexism, all this stuff. And, unless you like go all the way with the legal system, even with whistleblowing laws, you're not protected unless you plan to like go all the way, unless you pay a lot of
I
money.
didn't know that. I know you and I are type of people that were more vocal and verbal, and I guess we have to stand back and understand and appreciate that many veterinarians are not like that.
They don't have, honestly, in some ways, like even the safety network to feel that they have the leverage to speak, right?
Yes.
Hey, thanks for joining us for part 1 of this episode with Dr. Priya Bhatt. We will have the second episode coming out in late February, so I hope you'll join us then. There's a whole lot more interesting stuff that we get into. It's quite riveting, really. And in the meantime, I hope you will get your tickets to the House Call and Mobile Vet Virtual Conference February 3rd and 4th, 2024. The link to sign up is in our show notes, and I can't wait to see you there. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as The House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for house call vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.